Hey everyone, this is Austin, and we're back with another development update for SCP Fragmented Minds. We've made some pretty fun new changes since the last video, with a couple of new mechanics, animations, and environments, so let's go ahead and get right into the new updates. Welcome back everyone. These last couple of months we wanted to start finalizing the map for chapter 1, and with the addition of a few new areas, we're about done with the entire map and just need to do a final decoration pass before it's complete. Now, one of the first new areas we added was a type of space hangar, which are used in-world to receive cargo, SCPs, and other goods from Earth, as well as being the main landing zone for the dropships we saw in the last devlog. The next area we wanted to focus on was a lobby environment, which you'll see multiple times in Chapter 1, so we wanted to make this area very distinct to showcase the brutalist inspirations behind a lot of the game's architecture, while also reminding players they're underground with the exposed rock walls. Right past the lobby, we began to work on a train station environment that would be a logical extension of the lobby. This area is important since its trams link all of the areas within Site-113 together, so we wanted to make sure its design reflected that, while also looking like it and the lobby are a seamless room. This area, along with a few others, still need a final lighting pass before they're done, so keep an eye out for that in another update. Since stealth is a pretty big component of the game, we wanted to design an environment that would really help players learn how it works, and we've since created a relatively large tunnel that features multiple paths and environmental interactions that can be used to your advantage if you decide to get creative as you navigate your way through. Something we wanted to focus on was giving diverse and interesting places to explore as you navigate your way through the game, and this cave was an environment we really wanted to include, since it gives a look into how the facility would actually expand in-world, while also being something very pretty to break up the areas of the level and help continue the underground theme. We wanted Site-113 to be as realistic as possible, and to help achieve this while also giving more areas for players to find loot and other fun things, we set out to design some bathrooms that could be sprinkled around certain areas to give that lived-in feeling, and maybe even feature an Easter egg or two in the future. We've also recently completed decoration passes on a few other areas to make them more realistic and believable for an office and warehouse setting, and we're eager to begin finishing up their implementation into the game. Since it's no secret that this facility is on Mars, you can expect areas to have little or no pressure for a variety of reasons, and to help transition between these high pressure and low pressure areas, we created a type of airlock that has, in our totally unbiased opinion, a really cool animation for transitioning between areas. One of the latest additions we've made to some places is patches of flesh and fleshy tendrils that are used in specific areas that the creatures within the first chapter like to make for their nests. This is something we really wanted to add because not only does it help tell the story, but it also gives a more gross and actually anomalous feeling to the environments without being intrusive to gameplay. These last few months we've been working to create more animations for the environment, the player, and even a couple of new ones for some SCPs. These are actually some of the last animations we needed to make and can't wait for people to see how they're used in game. Their first new animation is actually one for SCP-3199 and is a new mechanic that will allow them to open locked doors. That feature isn't set up yet for their AI, but is something we'll be adding in shortly. However, something that is now set up is the SCP's ability to either grab or tackle the player to the ground to force them into a QuickTime event that'll either allow the player to escape without being damaged, or could outright kill them if they fail it. These QTEs have pretty specific requirements to trigger them so they don't get annoying, and we even have different animations that can play for one of the QTEs depending on the weapon in your hand when you're attacked. There's also a few new environmental interaction animations for the player that we've implemented, and a new one is being able to turn a valve to extinguish ignited gases coming from a pipe. However, you can actually interact with them again to turn them on, which could make them a very useful trap. These fiery pipes can also be extinguished with fire extinguishers, so players have a choice in how they want to interact with them. Players will also encounter various types of broken doors, and we have two distinct animations for prying open broken doors that will let players progress past these obstacles. Broken doors actually have both a puzzle and environmental purpose, and we can't wait for players to see how they're used in game. Now, one thing we wanted to note about QTEs as well is we've made an accessibility feature that allows players to simply hold the correct button instead of needing to click it multiple times. A common question we sometimes get is whether or not the game will have first-person cinematics, and we're happy to say that cinematics are actually one of our favorite ways to tell the story, and these two cinematic first-person animations are an example of how you can expect animations like this to look in game. Of course, we would show off more, but some of the animations contain massive spoilers, and we'd much rather you get to watch them yourself when you play. Throughout the environment, you'll encounter various animated props, such as security cameras that are able to track your movements, anemometers that measure and display wind speeds, large containers falling off the backs of trucks, and a couple of other animated objects that will help these environments feel alive and interesting to go through. Now, during playtesting, we got some feedback that it's a bit hard to tell when we're actually doing damage to an SCP, so we've since made them bleed as well as created a procedural system to drive damage animations on them, so it's now much clearer when you have hit and done damage to a creature, as well as being more clear when they've been stunned from either a parry or from taking excessive damage. Since the last devlog, we've implemented and completed several new mechanics that will be crucial to gameplay throughout the entirety of the game. One of these new systems is the power cores, and these will be plugged into various outlets to start generators or power machines and equipment nearby. These will be critical to some puzzles, and you see them throughout the entire game, so be sure to note where they are wherever you see them, since they could be extremely important, especially in later chapters. Another newly finished mechanic is the hacking system, which is powered by your PDA. Hacking can be used to activate or open equipment from a distance, and can even be used against enemies, since failing a hack will cause the corresponding device to play an audible air noise that AI can hear. We have plans to allow this device to hack cameras, and will be experimented with that new addition shortly, so you can expect to see that update in a later video. One of the most important tools currently in the game is the welder, and this little device is now able to ignite oil puddles, which can travel and ignite other objects, causing a chain reaction that can do serious damage to enemies if they get hit by the flames or resulting explosions from flammable objects. The welder can also ignite flammable barrels directly, which are able to ignite other things and cause a lot of chaos. However, since the welder fires an electrical bolt, it can also electrify water and even stun enemies directly for a short period of time. This can be used for either laying traps or as a method of last resort when you're being chased by an enemy. Of course, it's still able to shock electronics to power or disable them for a bit as well, and this mechanic will be expanded upon in future chapters to increase its versatility even further. Saving and loading are a core part of any game, and we wanted to give a bit of extra flair to this process. So we've since designed and implemented a type of save station that can be interacted with to both save and load different save profiles. These little machines will be able to give a one-time heal, and can even sometimes have medical syringes located in the bottom drawers, so don't forget to check after saving. The latest minigame we've added are these crane controllers, and these are able to activate different machinery if powered. The puzzle associated with these little machines can both increase and decrease in difficulty depending on what's being interacted with, so they should end up being pretty versatile and might even feature a different type of puzzle on them later in the game. Some of you who watched the last devlog might have already noticed there are many more UI pieces implemented and ready to go. First and probably most notable are the new HUD UI elements, which display stamina and health, as well as working together with our hint system and objective system. As a side note, we ditched the old in-world objective markers that were used in the demo, and have since put a lot of focus in using lighting techniques to guide players around the map instead. Another big UI change has been with the codex and inventory, and you're not able to use the inventory to its full potential, as well as being able to see key mission items, listen to audio logs, and read about any creatures or other things you may have found during your journey through the game. We plan to also add crafting and perks to the codex as well, but those will be unlocked in Chapter 2 and beyond, so stay tuned to hear more about those features after they're implemented. We also did an update to the hotbar UI that was featured in the demo, and are currently working on a revamp to the weapon wheel UI so it more closely fits the new style of the game. The welder has also finally seen its UI implemented, and we've added some fun little UI bits that will exist on generators and other various environmental things around the game too. There are a couple of final UI things we need to implement, like the settings menu and start screens, but those will be coming shortly and are essentially the final UI bits before ready to launch. However, no true devlog is complete without more concept designs, and we've actually started pre-production on Chapter 2 and some various things that'll be in there, with the most notable being the Scranton Reality Anchor, which is commonly referred to as an SRA. These devices are going to play a pretty large role in the game, and we're extremely excited to showcase how they'll work in Chapter 2 later on. We've also been redesigning some props like the keycard readers, and even some new explosive barrel designs that we want to use in Chapter 2 and beyond as well. Now, we have some early designs for the Chapter 2 map, and so far they're coming together quite nicely. There's going to be a ton of iteration on these designs once we actually get into the events that occur within the chapter, so the designs will almost certainly change from what we can see here, but they've been a fantastic starting point for us. Since we're nearing the finish line for Chapter 1, we wanted to start focusing on props and other fun items that will be in Chapter 2 and beyond. One of the first props was these vending machines, which will be scattered around the game, and can dispense certain drinks in exchange for foundation bucks. These drinks would give small buffs and provide some healing, so they could come in handy in dire situations. After this, we went to work making some changes to existing props like the explosive barrels, and created some various new props we can use to populate levels and make things feel lived in and real. Now, some of these props, like these moving screens, will also carry loot, so if you see one, be sure to search through it. One of the more dangerous new environmental hazards are these large fans, which you can use your trusty welder or nearby buttons to disable and be allowed to safely walk through them. However, be sure to do so quickly, since running into spinning fan blades is generally an unsafe idea. Visual effects are generally one of the last things that get made before everything is final, and we've been working on an important new effect that will be seen in several areas as you play. It's a special shadow effect that can be applied to objects to essentially make them transparent. We have some fun usages planned for this effect, so be sure to pay attention to the environment. A lot of people have been asking when they can expect Chapter 1 to launch, and what Chapter 1 will actually contain. Now, we don't have a specific launch date yet, but we do have a window that is a lot sooner than you might think. There's going to be details announced for the projected launch date either this month or next, so make sure you wishlist the game so you can get it when it goes live. Early access will, for now, contain the first chapter of the game, which is essentially the introduction chapter, and introduces players to the story, some characters, and the core mechanics of the game, as well as stealth and combat. This chapter is pretty large and relatively linear, with some areas featuring multiple paths that will allow either stealth or combat, depending on your playstyle and where in the level you are. Future chapters will be less linear and feature more branching paths, as well as different ways to utilize your tools to solve problems. But for Chapter 1, we wanted to keep things simple for players to begin to understand and use the core mechanics. Also, future chapters will be released as a free update to owners of the game, so you will not be required to spend any additional money to get all chapters of the game, since they are all included with the base game. We expect there to be 3 or 4 chapters in total, so it's going to be a pretty fun road to a 1.0 launch, and we cannot wait to begin fully starting on Chapter 2 after we launch, and do some bug fixes for Chapter 1. Of course, being an early access title means that certain things will inevitably change. We don't expect any massive changes to be made to Chapter 1, though some cutscenes or other material might get overhauled or replaced before an official 1.0 launch, since we'll have tons of new content to use for cutscenes or other material to create a really cohesive experience with the future chapters. Well, that about sums it up for this devlog. Make sure to subscribe and follow our Twitter or join our Discord so you can get information about when our launch date will actually be. We're thrilled to be able to finally share the first chapter of SCP Fragmented Minds with you all, and can't wait to start the push to a full launch. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next devlog and early access launch.